Alright YouTube, it's time for the Occult video 88 on the topic of Ashubha for detachment, delving a little bit into the sort of Eastern, the yogic path, Buddhism, Hinduism, the Eastern philosophies as it were in general, within the path of Kamathana. I am not generally a big fan of Buddhist philosophy. Hinduism more, especially from a mystical or certainly herbal perspective. Some of the ritualism there, the sadhus, of course, are of interest to me because they hang out in graveyards and they cover themselves in cremation ash and go to charnel grounds and hoot and holler and smoke weed and stuff. Seems like a positive path to me. It seems more spiritually liberating than some of the strictly ascetic paths. However, at the same time, of course, they don't eat meat, generally speaking, unless they're cannibalizing people occasionally. And they do that to get past sort of their fear and guilt, and the process of Ashubha as a meditation, in essence, in brief, is to meditate upon mortality, to meditate upon things that would be considered frightening or disgusting, to liberate yourself from attachment in so doing. Now, some people don't have a problem with this. Some people, they would see as much as a dead worm. They freak out. They get all upset over it. It makes them sad because something's died, or it makes them afraid because it's a corpse. It's decaying potentially. And this holds them back spiritually as far as their development in order to truly experiment with spirituality. Whether you're an Eastern practitioner or not, you can't have any fear about that type of practice. You can, of course, use logic and reason in the Western sort of post-Renaissance Enlightenment sense, as I would, as certainly Satanism would suggest, to govern your actions, especially in a legal sense, or to escape persecution if it's pragmatic to do so, if there's no good reason to undergo it. Of course, don't put yourself through anything that you then have to complain about, would be specifically a satanic command. The process of Ashubha, though, it delves into sort of the bloated corpse, the gnawed corpse, the skeleton, the various stages of decomposition from fresh body all the way to fully decayed. And the idea is to both ruminate upon the general topic as well as to consider yourself as dead. To consider yourself as that corpse, to understand that your mortal body breaks down in time, becomes a decayed corpse, does get gnawed on or bloated, or you know, maybe you get cremated or whatever, but essentially you're dead. Embracing your mortality is a form of detachment. And the problem is, for example, from a more secular perspective, doesn't it often seem like those who have no fear of death, we'd say, well, that's, you know, this person's acting dumb, they're taking their life into their hands, but at the same time, they seem to enjoy things more, they seem more liberated and free. They are, in the most literal sense, because they've gotten past their fear of death. They don't care if they die, or they don't think too much about it. Now, there are several different disparate groups of people who don't fear death. The first group are people who just don't think about it ever. They're completely materialistic. Until they're actually on their deathbed, they don't think about it. They don't mind the subject. They don't bother with the subject. I wouldn't necessarily see that as a positive thing, of course. That's just a form of ignorance. Ignorance is bliss, I suppose, for them in this case. Now, another group of people would be people who, they're completely ascetic, they're completely detached, they don't care about their body because they believe in Zen or reincarnation or one of these things. And so to them, the body's little more than a prison, really. It's actually a negative thing. I don't necessarily agree with that path, but I can understand why it would be liberating. Then there are those who have thought about it, come to the conclusion after much thought, wait, mortality's real, I'm going to die, so why bother? Regardless of the spiritual or physical implications of what it actually means to die. You cease existing, you reincarnate, you go to paradise, you go to hell, you achieve a state of Detachment for a while, purgatory, whatever it means. Your mortal body is fated to degrade in time. You'll grow older. There are some people, of course, who age very, very well. They continue to be active and mentally aware up into their 90s. They're 100 years old. There's something about a park ranger I saw in the news a few days ago. She's like 100 and something. Still does her job. She's like this little, almost dwarven-looking lady. She still hikes around. She still carries her sidearm and does everything that any other ranger would do. She's obviously aging better than many people do. But she will die someday. Some people, when they're on their deathbed, they're unfulfilled. They look back on their life, they think about all the time they wasted or what they focused on. They say, oh, all I ever did was work. All I ever did was go for money. Or they're alone. Nobody cares about them. They were like a miser or a crook or something like that, and they don't have anyone there when they're dying. They don't have anyone to help them or give them comfort. Obviously seen generally is a negative thing. Or they're fulfilled. They feel like, hey, I lived a good life. But in essence, even those that have lived a good, fulfilling, wholesome, they're not a criminal. They didn't rape anyone or murder anyone. Maybe they were a vegan. They were, they constantly tithed, or they performed some other service. They planted 100,000 trees while they were alive, and they feel like that's a good thing. Maybe it's still not quite spiritually fulfilling, because there's that nagging doubt. Maybe they didn't think enough about the process of mortality. It behooves every person to consider that process, to ruminate on it. I mean deeply, whether it's in meditation or not. For instance, I talk about mortality to a huge extent, not just here, but also in my literature, Sickness and Hell. Half of it's about things dying and decaying and exploding and bloating. Morbid Stories is quite similar. These things not only are unavoidable and innate to me, but are actually positive. I see these as part of a cycle. I've come to that conclusion. Some people, of course, they say, well, that's stupid. When you die, you just become as nothing. Very well, so be it. It doesn't matter to me. Because I've thought enough about the process, I understand I will die. It doesn't matter to me when or how or if I die. A person, of course, can hope they don't die painfully. You've got you've got leukemia, and your body takes weeks and weeks to slowly break down, and you get 5 infections at once, or you're undergoing chemo at the time, your hair falls out, you feel weak and radioactive, and you're all fucked up, or something like that. That would suck, obviously. In such cases, death becomes a form of release. Personally, I can't wait. Some of them even kill themselves because of this. I can understand why. I know if I got diagnosed with something terminal that was going to make me suffer for any prolonged period, Alzheimer's, certain cancers, leukemia, emphysema or something, yeah, I'd off myself, honestly, because it wouldn't matter to me. I'd be like, well, screw suffering. Why bother? They can be illegal all at once, but it's not going to stop me from doing that. It's like drugs. Well, people still smoke weed even though it's illegal. What's the fucking difference? Only person being harmed is the person performing the act. The reason is just pain avoidance. Not, oh, well, I'm terrified, I'm a scared, cowardly individual. It's actually the opposite. It's more like, I'm not going to bother sitting here suffering. I'm not interested in doing that. I don't really care whether I live or die anyway, because I'm going to be in pain, so, just bring on the hellfire or the paradise or whatever happens thereafter. It is good to ruminate on mortality. Not to obsess over it to such a degree that you drive yourself nuts, but yes, to consider yourself once in a while, to just sit down for an hour and think real deeply about the fact that you will die, that you are mortal. There's nothing you can do to stop that. Put yourself in a cryogenic state if you want to. That system, in the long span of thousands of years, it'll break down and your body will rot. It'll be like rotten ice or something. That doesn't sound too pleasant, by the way. Or you can certainly, as I've sparred with the transhumanists, I've admitted to them, yeah, of course you can lengthen the telomeres. Of course you can slow or halt the aging process altogether. And with increasing technology, probably within our lifetimes we'll be living, or at least capable of living, twice as long, and not aging substantially during that time. But even then, what if someone randomly shoots you in the head? What if a meteor hits you? What if an earthquake collapses your home on top of you? What if you die in a fire? I would think it'd be better to avoid a painful death than to avoid death altogether, because then you only have inflicted death left, and you're not going to get to choose necessarily how it's inflicted. But yes, you should ruminate on your mortality. If at first, it'll probably make you depressed. Oh, I've only got one life to live. I'll be nothing when I die. I'm going to miss everybody. Keep in mind, though, in the Eastern tradition, it's not death that separates people. Westerners tend to look at death and they say, well, you're taken away from your family, you're bereaved. That's literally the term used. You're bereaved loved ones. You're taken away from them, you'll never see your fucking kids again, you'll never see your fucking wife again, stuff like that. In the Eastern tradition, it's birth that separates people. They're sort of a conglomerate spiritual whole. They are then separated through the process of corruption, and then they are rejoined in death if you've lived a virtuous enough life. Now, I don't believe in karma. I don't believe there's any divine ongoing process determining these things. I believe more in the process of Detachment between lives, reincarnation that's uncontrollable, number one, not governed by karma, number two, if anything, governed by a person's own mental level of awareness. And nothing more than that, with the mind as sort of a beacon in its dying state, directing them to one of these sort of mystical places through the interaction of various dimensions or whatever the hell it happens to be. That's my opinion alone. It doesn't have any roots in Eastern tradition. It's closer to maybe theosophy, really, than anything like that. Vaguely. But yes, at first it's probably going to get you depressed, but then after a while you come to accept it and you're like, oh, I'm going to die. Oh, that's pretty cool. I can't wait for that adventure myself. It helps that I've already thought that I was dead when I overdosed, thought that I was dead after I got struck by lightning through a screen door. After a while, these traumatic events sort of deaden your sense of caring about whether you live or die or not. It shouldn't drive you to the suicidal, though. What you should be doing is find a goal and work towards it during your life. It doesn't have to be even necessarily a spiritual goal. If you have like a deep-seated belief that you should be helping people, you should go do it. Join the Peace Corps or something. If you have and don't worry too much about it. Okay, maybe you get malaria. So what? You're going to die anyway. Don't fear death. It's pointless to bother because it's inevitable. So you can get on with living your life. Keeping in mind, of course, if the Judeo-Christian ethos is correct, we are all governed by an insane, tyrannical deity, as opposed to deities that make any sense, as in the pagan traditions, or the Hindu tradition, or Buddhism, or something like that. I believe that these moral systems are man-made, including karma. I don't believe in torturing animals and slaying people constantly, but that is a subjective judgment made by man. Based on survival instinct. So yeah, a little bit about Ashubha. Meditate upon the gnawed corpse. Meditate upon the skeleton. Or not meditate, but think deeply in a philosophical manner. Think about the fact that you will be dead at some point in the future. And then you no longer fear death. But you have to visualize it strongly. You have to believe in it truly. You can't just say, oh yeah, I'm going to die, okay, well, that's over with. No. Think about it for a while until it sinks in that it's unavoidable. A great many people who have achieved a great deal through materialistic means on their deathbeds, they're terrified. Why? Because they haven't lived their life as they truly think that they should once they recognize that mortality is impending. So recognize it's impending before you're on your deathbed. Govern your actions thus in a deep-seated manner. Don't worry if you fail a few times. Don't worry if you make mistakes, because you will. But yeah, it's a very positive thing to think about gnawed corpses. It's also kind of funny. That's about all. Peace out.